Hey all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host. Today I've got my special guests back on, Lloyd Cappuccio and Kevin Liddell. We're going to talk about Combi Steam Ovens and can they sous vide? I'll be right back with Kevin and Lloyd.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from Fire and Water.
Hey all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I am Darren. I am your host, and it is getting towards the end of the year, and it's December, and it's almost Christmas, and I got my two buddies on, Lloyd Cappuccio and Kevin Liddell. They are both here, and we're going to have a big rumble today. We're going to talk about Combi Steam Ovens. The new Anova Precision Oven is a Combi Steam Oven. We're going to talk about can they sous vide or can they not? This is a big controversy, huge in the Facebook groups. I mean, it's just people are fighting and there's a war going on, and we're going to settle it right here. Welcome, Lloyd. You're going to be my counterpoint to my point, right?
Or eye candy. Eye candy. I have hair too.
If you guys haven't noticed, Lloyd's got a haircut. He is looking dapper.
Yes, I am.
He's also not at the beach today like he normally is. So he is actually
it's cold out.
And Kevin has got fast internet now, so we can actually talk to Kevin and he doesn't cut in and out. Welcome back, Kevin.
Well, yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
And Lloyd's dogs are in the background saying hello.
Oh, I got two of them guys. Sorry about that.
So, all right, guys. So I want to get started. This is going to be like a semi-serious, have fun. It's the holidays. It's the end of 2020, and this year's been crap for everybody. So let's talk about this, because one of the things that's not changed this year is the amount of technology that keeps coming out. And I think that's going to be my next book. I think I'm going to write a book about how technology has jammed its way into both the outdoor and indoor cooking, areas of our homes, and how much it's changed just over the last 5 or 6 years. So technology has been really sticking its, face into the cooking, both indoor and outdoor cooking areas of the home. And one of the things that happened this year is that Anova Precision came out with a new home Combi Steam Oven. And one of the controversies has been popping up, and that came up in the sous vide groups, because when they came out with it, they marketed it, especially in their Facebook group, which up until now had been strictly talking about sous vide and circulators. When they came out with the sous vide or the Anova Precision Oven, it has some sous vide properties, or they use the term sous vide mode, and they kind of marketed it heavy in their group. And some of the people that are strictly sous vide aficionados got kind of upset with that, because it was different than sous vide, and so they didn't understand it and all that. So that's kind of where this controversy thing kind of started. Combi ovens have been out there for a while now, but they really haven't been something you could bring home with you. Some of the top end manufacturers like Miele and some others,
Rationale,
Wolf, and something like that, have had home steam ovens, but they're usually over $4, $5, $6 grand. So usually you don't see a whole lot of those in people's homes. But they're getting cheaper, and Anova is one of the first ones that came out with one that was under $700 that you could have in your house. So it's one of the things that you're probably going to see a lot more of them in the future, because they're the first ones to have that. So other manufacturers, I'm sure, are going to be working on their own. They're going to make improvements to the one that they have. So let's talk a little bit about what Combi ovens are. Kevin, you worked with them when you worked in the restaurant. So what exactly is a Combi oven? What can it do? What can it do different than a regular oven?
Basically, what it does is it measures the humidity. You can use a Combi oven as a conventional oven, like a convection oven that you might have at home. Your toaster oven might be a convection oven. That's what these air fryers are. They're all just convection ovens. So you can use it as a convection oven. You can also use it to steam. So just steam and steam heat. You can use it as a combination of convection heat and steam heat. And the newer Combi ovens have so many features. I mean, it's baffling what they can do. The home ones don't have all the features that the big ones do, obviously, but they also don't cost $30,000. So we're going to talk about wet bulb and dry bulb temperatures when we're talking about Combi ovens. And I think the easiest way to make people realize or understand the difference between dry bulb and wet bulb is when you hear about like heat index, when you're listening to the local weather forecast. The reason the heat index is higher than the air temperature that your regular thermometer is going to take is because there's evaporative cooling taking place. So when we do a wet bulb and a dry bulb thermometer, a dry bulb thermometer is just like a normal thermometer you would have every day, use every time, digital, analog, whatever. That's a dry bulb thermometer. Wet bulb thermometers have usually a cloth. They have some sort of absorbent casing that's also conducive to evaporation. And so it's like when you sweat, evaporative cooling, it's what cools you off. So they're using these wet bulb thermometers to measure the evaporative cooling. So in general, until you get up to 100% humidity, your wet bulb thermometer temperature is going to read lower than your dry bulb thermometer as a general rule. There are a few exceptions, but as a general rule, that's what's going to happen. Once you reach 100% humidity, evaporation and evaporative cooling stops because there's nowhere for the moisture to go from your food into the air surrounding it. So I was reading, if a human is in 115 degrees at 50% humidity, that's when you've exceeded your ability to cool yourself. So at 50% humidity and 115 degrees, you will start absorbing heat from the atmosphere instead of releasing heat into the atmosphere, and you will die relatively quickly. So I don't know. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
I'm living in Florida.
Yeah. Well, and, me personally, I've lived in Florida since 1979, and, we get 80, 90% humidity, and you go outside and it can be 80 degrees and it feels like it's 120. And that's kind of what the wet bulb temperature is. It's the feels like, temperature, so when you're watching the weather and it says it's 80 degrees, but feels like 120, that's the wet bulb, because like you said, the more humidity in the air, the hotter it feels. If you go out, I've been to Vegas, in the middle of July, because it's cheaper then, it's really cheap. Nobody wants to go there because it's so hot. It's 112, 120 degrees, but you walk outside and it's really not that bad. I mean, but if you go out, the difference between going outside at 90 degrees in Florida and going outside at 120 degrees in Vegas, you can watch the water just leave your body in Las Vegas. I mean, you don't really, your clothes don't get too wet because it's just gone. It evaporates off. But in Florida, it'll just stay with you. You get your clothes get soaking wet and you feel like you were actually swimming in a swimming pool. But in Vegas, it just leaves your body so quick. You get dried out. Your lips get chapped right away. I mean, when the wind blows, it's like a hair dryer blowing in your face. It's totally different in Florida. And so, I mean, go ahead, Lloyd.
In Vegas, you almost don't sweat when you're in Vegas, when you're in a dry heat. You actually sublimate. So you don't actually form moisture on your skin. It goes straight from your skin into a gaseous form.
Oh yeah, it just evaporates right away. So yeah.
Yeah, it never even, it goes from one stage, it skips a stage. It goes straight from the liquid stage straight to vapor stage.
Go ahead,
The best analogy is when you stick your hand in a 200-degree oven versus putting it above a boiling pot of water. This thing will burn your hand. both at
Right.
200 degrees. But yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So let's start by just talking about what a steam oven or a combi oven can do different than a regular oven. I mean, we kind of talked about wet bulb and dry bulb and all that, but what's the benefits? I know I just cooked some bagels this morning in the Anova oven. So one of the benefits that has is that the steam actually affects, when you're baking bread or something, the steam actually helps proof the dough and lets the dough rise a little bit better. So what else can a steam in a oven do to help cook?
well, just to correct you a little bit, Darren, it's not actually helping the proof in the oven. It's actually increasing the oven spring, and the steam will prevent
expansion.
the expansion. Whereas in a conventional oven, I worked in a bagel shop, guys, in the 80s, and we had steam injected ovens. And when you bake bread in a conventional method, the top crust will form very quickly. And during the oven spring, when yeast hits about 140 degrees, it gives that poof and it cracks the bread. In a steam injected oven or a combi oven or a CVAP oven, for example, it keeps the surface kind of wet and moist. So it gives time for the oven spring to happen and it won't break the crust. So,
well, thanks for correcting me. Now I'm going to have to kick you off. You can't ever come back.
Are you probably going to edit that part out, aren't you?
Yes. No, I'm kidding.
It's called oven spring. Yeah, oven spring.
So besides that, what is the benefits of cooking in steam or having the option to cook in steam?
Moisture, increased moisture.
Yeah, you can retain moisture. Yeah. If you're cooking a chicken in 100% humidity and there's nowhere for the moisture to go, it's less likely to be burning out of your chicken. So you're going to have ultimately a better result in your product.
Higher percentage of moisture retention also in your product, in your food.
So before there was combi ovens, I think CVAP ovens came before. I don't know if they came around the same time or before. You can read one article will say one thing and another article will say something else. But from what I understand, where CVAP ovens came from is a company built them for Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, 1960s.
And they used it to not only cook the chicken, but to keep it. Because one of the hardest things they found was after they fried the chicken to try to keep it, perfect for the amount of time that it had to sit there before somebody came and actually bought it. So what's the difference between a CVAP, which is, go ahead.
The Kentucky Fried Chicken, they actually, I don't know if they're using them to cook with now, but I know for 30 or 40 years when they first got the CVAPs, they were only holding food in them because you could hold food safely and you didn't lose crispness or quality of the product. And so it turned out really well for them. CVAP oven, as far as I know, now I've played around with them. It's been a while. I've played around. I used to work with auto shams, and that's sort of what they are. They hold your food at a nice, you don't have to hold it at 180 degrees. You can hold it at a proper temperature with a good humidity content, and the quality of the product stays pretty close to fresh cooked. As far as I know, that you just don't have the ability to control the percentages as easily. And I think that combi ovens are definitely more accurate as far as their temperature. $30,000 comb better be darn close to dead on temperature and dead on humidity when you're dialing that stuff in. Yeah.
The newest CVAP ovens, I just Googled them. You can't adjust the humidity with the new ones, the new CVAP ovens.
Okay.
Breaking up.
I mean, I'm amazed at the rationales that I've played with the combi ovens. Is that better? The combi ovens I've played with have just incredible amounts of control, and you can cook different types of breads on different levels at different temperatures. I mean, it's just amazing. And then they have like a smoker drawer in them, full internet connectivity, and then you have a clean solution reservoir you can fill, and you just program a thing in for a clean cycle overnight, and you come back to a perfectly clean oven the next morning. It's amazing.
I want that one. I want that one.
Yeah, the things that the commercial ones have now. I mean, I've looked up some of the, a lot of the stuff that we get in our homes, and that's kind of what on my book I'm going to focus on. a lot of the stuff that we eventually get to our home starts out on the commercial side under restaurants and, the food preparation industry, whether it's in institutions like hospitals or, schools or what have you. A lot of that technology starts there because that's where the money is, really. They can afford the R&D and the money. And these restaurants, like you said, Kevin, these Rationale ovens are like, 30, 40 grand, and they have to have certain, direct water line hookups. They have to have certain, the electricity that they take, is not just plug it into your regular wall at home. So that's one of the things that these ovens come from. But, they develop all this technology for that, but eventually with all kinds of technology, it gets cheaper. And then we eventually can get it into our homes. And that's one of the things with this new Anova oven. It's got it, they developed it to be affordable for your home. Not all the technology is, of course, what they have in these Combi Steam Ovens that are commercial based, but a lot of it is. And some of the things that they've developed into it, you can do some really similar things to it. And one of the things, I have this cheaper F Bloomline steam oven that I got off of Amazon. I'm comparing it with the Anova oven. It's a very basic steam oven. I can have it do steam or not. So there's no control of the steam, no percentages of steam. It's got two burners, one on the top, one on the bottom. And that's about all I can do is I can control which burners are on. I can have them both on or one or the other, steam or no steam. And that's it. So one of my tests today in this video is to see which one made better bagels. And really you couldn't control anything on that cheaper one. So they came out about the same, but if I wanted to do something else where I needed more control, I didn't have that. So,
well, let me debate you for a second, Darren. So you got the Anova, and I'm understanding that you agree with Anova that there is a sous vide setting, and that is sous vide.
Well, no, that's
what makes the other one not sous vide then? They're both using steam and temperature.
Well, the only reason, and this is where I think a lot of people get confused, is that the only reason that Anova put sous vide mode in there is because that it's measuring the wet bulb temperature. So the F Bloomline doesn't have that option. Mm-hmm. It only measures the dry bulb temperature. There's no difference. So when you push the sous vide mode in the Anova Precision Oven, all it's really doing is reading the wet bulb temperature.
But that would be a better way to describe it than saying sous vide. Well, it's not sous vide. It's not sous vide though.
Well,
what's the standard?
If you listen to what Scott Heimendinger, and he was on my podcast,
watched the video,
and the way he explains it is they use that because that's what people will understand more because they're used to the sous vide. So the similar cooking temperatures and all that, and times you would use with the sous vide mode instead of
I understand that
being literally
more approachable.
Right now, to not to defend Anova, but that's been being used in Combi Steam Ovens before Anovas came out. So for them, to sit there and say, well, they can't say that. Well, they're, like I said, it's an industry standard that I've seen chef shows on Netflix that, some of these shows, they go around and visit all these different restaurants, and they're using these Combi Steam Ovens, and they're using bags. If you're using a bag, that's technically sous vide. So they're actually cooking sous vide in these ovens because they're using a bag and they're using
that's
steam.
Where I would disagree. So if the standard is steam, right, and temperature, if that's a standard for sous vide, then I guess when I pressure can or pressure cook my food, I've got steam, I got protein, I got heat.
I don't think Anova's ever said that that's what it is. I think they're, like I said, they say it's because it's using the wet bulb. Now, if you choose not to use a bag in there and use the sous vide mode, then technically it's not sous vide. But I think that's where people are getting tripped up, and I think that's where you get tripped up a lot. Is it doesn't really matter what you call it. If you put a bag in there, and you use sous vide mode, is it sous vide or no? Is it because it has to be in the water?
No, I would say you can get sous vide like textures and flavors, but it's not sous vide.
But it's so not. if you're marketing to people who don't have as much knowledge,
marketing.
as us,
thank you, marketing.
But it is. But you have to. It's not money. It's for people to understand it more. It's,
right. Dumbing it down for the average person. But
well, yeah, so that somebody would understand. If I use sous vide, then I'm using
right.
the similar temp. I'm using similar temperatures and times than I would in sous vide.
Right, so I get that. We're dumbing it down for the general public. Basically, if a person does an internet search, oh, this is sous vide and regular cooking. Right. I'm going to buy that. So you're dumbing it down for the regular audience. I have to argue with you, and I appreciate what Scott's done. Okay, I love this video. I love the oven. I want one, but it's not sous vide. There's a vast difference between it as far as thermal conductivity, water versus steam. I'm not saying it doesn't produce a good product, but it's not sous vide. I can give you multiple analogies. I have a Weber Smoky Mountain, right? I just did it the other day. It's custom. It stands over 6 feet tall, right? I got a barbecue guru in there. I can control the temperature. I have a CF fan, a CF M fan in there to circulate the air. I have a water pot. I got a steamer inject. Is that sous vide or is that barbecue?
If you put it in a bag, you cook the food in a bag, it's sous vide. And I'll fight you for that.
It's not sous vide. It's not sous vide. It's not submerged in water. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying...
But who are you arguing with that with, though? You can't argue
everybody. I'll argue with everybody. I'll even arm wrestle you guys.
But you can't argue if it's an industry standard and they've been using it in others. I mean, I can... That's
going to stop me?
No, I mean, you can argue, but you have to go to every Facebook group and everything else. And
stupid is as stupid does. It's stupid. I don't care.
Hey, stop that. That's what I used on Kevin.
All right, Kevin, I need some input from Kevin here. Give us your intellectual opinion.
Hold on, before I get Kevin involved, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm not going to shut him up yet.
All right, there we go. Some water here.
I want to share my screen because I've got some websites pulled up, and some of these you've looked at, I'm sure, because we did.
Oh yeah, I've seen this one. I read this one. It's good.
So sous vide, combi ovens, CFAP ovens, cook and hold. I mean, and most of these articles will tell you that it's not the same, of course, but it's very similar.
Thank you. Sous vide like similar result.
Exactly. I never argue that, but to argue that they can't use the term sous vide in the oven is kind of silly when it's been going on for many years. And
would you agree, though, just because you do something for a very long time doesn't make you correct?
I didn't
say talk about religion. Oh my God!
I didn't say it was absolute, but not everything has to be absolute, though. As far as this goes, we're not talking religion. We're talking about ovens.
I don't have this link. Which link is this one?
This is actually an article that Nathan Mervold did back in 2014. And
could you send this one to me, please?
Yeah, and it's actually his design of
I'd like it too.
Design of a better oven, and it's very pretty. It's really cool. I found this one just like 2 days ago.
Ooh, I like to read.
So Nathan Mervold is the guy behind Modernist Cuisine. If you guys don't know what Modernist Cuisine is, Google that. Check out the books. The books are very expensive, and a lot of the top chefs buy these books because he goes into really details of a lot of modernist cooking.
Just give you interject one little thing. I just came across an article by Nathan Mervold. Just one. I'm going to talk. So, Modern Cuisine for the Home, page 38, specifically talks about combi ovens. Temperatures below 140 degrees will vary between 4 and 9 degrees. Okay? So, not like sous vide. Sous vide you can set, and they'll stay within 1/10 of a degree.
Right. I don't think anybody's going to argue with you. I don't think anybody's ever going to argue with you on that because that's physics. I mean, water, itself, physics. Liquid water is actually a better, conductor of heat, and you can control it a lot better than steam because you got air mixed in with it. So nobody's ever going to argue that.
That's debatable.
Yeah.
Oh, I could argue that.
Kevin, you'd argue about anything.
Kevin can argue everything.
I'll send you guys a copy of this because
please do.
I'll send you this link because it's actually pretty good. Because his whole point is, he said the ovens that we use normally, and this is from 2014. Remember that most ovens that are in our homes are used to bake bricks. I mean, they're used to dry things out. And that's pretty much what you bake bricks. You want to dry it out to make it hard and have no moisture in it. So that's what we use to cook our food is something that's actually, just going to dry it out. So, and in this article, he just goes about what we really need to do to make an oven and it's pretty much a combi oven is what it is. And it's kind of like a lot of the stuff that they did back then is what these companies are putting into these newer $40,000-$50,000 Combi Steam ovens. And then even some of these home type ovens like Wolf and Miele have these home ovens now where they're not the $20,000 or $40,000 ones, but they're still $5,000, $6,000, $8,000. And like with this
one, the Wolf ovens, do they have a wet bulb? Do they have wet bulb temperatures too?
Yes.
Oh wow, nice.
Yes, and let's see which. Oh crap!
I want one.
I gotta be fine.
And by the way, just for your audience, I'm not against Anova. I'm not against Combi ovens. From what I've read, excellent results.
Okay,
people are very happy. It's not sous vide.
Well, it's technically not. You can get
sous
vide type results. Now here's the Miele. So Miele is like the one that's the most popular one now that they're out of. I think they're out of Germany. A lot of these companies that develop these steam ovens and stuff are out of Europe. So, or even I think the Anova one was developed by a guy from Europe, but they build them in Asia because it's just cheaper. But,
do they have one for the home?
Who?
Does Miele have one for the home?
Yeah, these are for the home.
That's it right there. I think.
Yeah, but they're more expensive. See, these are like the $5,000-$6,000 ones.
Oh gosh!
And some of them actually have built-in vacuum sealers. They have built-in chamber sealer drawer.
Oh, nice!
If you see this here, they're showing you cooking in a bag in the Miele oven. So technically, they will probably fight you and say yes, that's sous vide. So because it says sous vide cooking right here, but they actually this particular model has a built-in chamber sealer. So, I mean, you open the drawer, put your food in the bag, put the food in the drawer, close the drawer, hit the button, it's zoop, then you take it out and toss it in the oven. So
I know the terminology doesn't bother you, and Kevin could probably interject here. Why not use more precise terminology like combi cooking, humidity cooking,
and I think
cooking with moisture?
I think, one of the reasons is because like with this particular one, and even in some of the, like I said, I've watched a bunch of, chef type shows and cooking shows on Netflix and other places where they're still cooking in the bag and it's using steam, it's using moisture. So they still consider it sous vide because it's in a bag. So
they've commandeered the name is what they've done.
Well, it's because it's in the bag. They can technically say it is because it's in a bag.
I'm sure they would love to be able to throw in the term Instapot and
George Foreman grill
else in there. Yeah, air fryer. Call it an air fryer as well. I mean, what are the three hottest cooking trends right now? Instapot, air fryers, and sous vide.
Well, I tell you what, the new
if you can sell someone an oven that says they're going to do sous vide.
There's actually new GE. My actual sister just bought a new GE oven. It's one of their more expensive ones, and it's a convection oven, but it's got air fry button because most people don't know that a regular
it's marketing.
Because most people don't know that a convection oven is an air fryer.
Well, it's super fast. It's a little faster, right?
My daughter wanted an air fryer for Christmas, and I said, "Well, I just got the new, Anova oven. It's a convection oven. It's the same thing." She's like, "That's not an air fryer." I'm like, "It is."
From the Breville, I have a Breville oven, right? It's got convection and it has an air fryer mode. Air fried mode means super convection, so I'm assuming the fans spin extra fast.
Right.
And it's not air frying.
And the elements get a little bit hotter.
That's about it. It's a misnomer. It's just a marketing thing. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, and that's the reason, even Scott admitted this when it was on my podcast, they use that to differentiate, that it's using the wet bulb and that people can understand those times and temperatures compared to what you would sous vide. So,
and to sell more products.
It's just so people can understand it. But other than that, they can do a lot of things. They can, you can use a bag in them and cook sous vide type if you want to. They're really great for baking. I haven't, I've used mine, compared it a couple times with sous vide in the bag. I think that you get a very similar result. You'd be hard pressed to really be able to tell on certain things. There's a lot of things I won't use it for that I would normally sous vide, like larger items and stuff like that, or longer cooks.
Tenderization, for example, a roast.
Yeah, longer cooks like a brisket. I have a brisket I just did. I actually just pulled it out of the sous vide bath and chilled it down. I'm going to finish that up tomorrow. But I wouldn't cook a brisket for 48 hours in the oven. Have the oven running the whole time. I
think the ovens are awesome. I want their second version, or the Breville version, or a Polyscience version.
Yeah,
I think it's still relatively new.
But beyond that, I mean, the technology that the Anova oven has built into it, yeah, that's got some issues. I mean, people are complaining about the pan and some of them are hooking up to the Wi-Fi like they should. Some of them the water tank's cracking. You kind of expect that on a first generation product.
It's first generation.
Yeah, the Weber, Weber's been around for how long? 70, 80 years.
I love my Webers.
Right, but they came out with a pellet grill this last year.
It sucks.
And it bombed because they didn't do enough testing on it. And it came out and had all these issues, and they got fried. They got fried on the YouTube channels. They got fried in the Facebook groups and everywhere because, the pellets weren't going down like they were supposed to. They were getting grease fires. It just wasn't a really well-designed thing to release. And they had to come back and, send out replacement parts and fixes and all kinds of stuff in the first 6 months. And they really took it on the chin. And, so it can happen to any company. And when you have a first generation of something that's, especially like with Weber, they never made a pellet grill before. They never had anything that was Wi-Fi controlled. So this was all something new to them. And they had to,
they crapped the bed is what they did.
Yeah. They had to rely on other companies to help them design it and put it together. And then they just threw it out there without as much testing as they had a couple of units that worked good and didn't realize that when you go full production, things change.
I can only assume, but they relied on their name to sell their products.
That was that was my experience with the Steak Ager.
Yeah,
the Steak Ager was able to. I don't know if you guys, Steak Ager was it started off as like a home built box with Bluetooth and stuff.
I bought one. It sucked.
You could sort of connect, but you put it in. Yeah. But it was they're making them in a garage and sending them out whenever they got an order. And then they finally got Kingsford to come on board and use the name. And they got into these pretty big ones, they're a good size ager for beef, for doing subprimals. And so I got like a 40% discount. I thought, hey, that'd be pretty cool. And I ordered one. This was over 2 years ago. And it didn't, it was delayed months and months and months. And I had wanted to get it for Christmas, and I got it like 2 days after Christmas. It arrived. It was, parts were hanging out. Anyway, the whole experience had turned to bust. Everyone was complaining that all their machines, none of the machines worked. They were arriving all broken from China. They were beaten up. They didn't work. And that company, they just didn't test it enough before they sent out the pre-orders, and they were out of business in 6 months. They were gone. So Kingsford, So they went out of business, and someone else took up the name of the Steak Ager. It's not It's not Kingsford. It's not related to Kingsford charcoal.
Is it a better product, Kevin? Is it a better product now?
Yeah. But I was burnt so bad that I'm wary of that sort of stuff.
Did you send it back?
It's better. Oh yeah, I sent it back. Yeah, I didn't even open it. The box was all messed up. I just called UPS and said, "Come pick it up," and send it back, and they did. I got my money back. No issues. But it was just they rolled out too fast. And I think Anova took their time. I think Anova did pretty well. The only constant I can see is with the water tank. There are a few other issues, like the pan you mentioned, which is no big deal. There are some few issues, but you're going to have that, when you're dealing with electronics and water and, high heat, you're going to run into some issues here and there. And I think they're probably taking care of their customers pretty well.
Well, and a lot of
criticisms. I'm sorry, Darren, go ahead.
Well, a lot of times it's, the beta testing, you're doing it on something they produce 10 units. When you produce 10 units and you then move to producing 1,000 units, it's a lot different. The manufacturing process has to change. And I've talked to people and companies that, started out on a Kickstarter, and they made a few of these, and it works really good. Can't find any problems. And then now you start making 1,000 of them, and all these problems pop up because of the manufacturing process, and some of the things change. The guy made the grill gun, when he originally came out with it, it didn't have half the stuff that it has on it now, and he had to change a few things because they found out once you go from doing a limited production to a mass marketing production, things change a lot in the manufacturing process, and you can't use the same equipment, the same materials, you can't design it the same way. So a lot of these companies, that's what happens. They do a limited run and everything's great, and then they do a mass run and now everything sucks. So it's that whole balancing act, and then you got to work it through again. And I think that's what happened with Weber. I think that's what is going on right now with Anova. Luckily they're not having any major problems that I can see that they can't fix. Everything is pretty much we can switch out the water tank. They're just used the wrong material because they're finding in some instances.
Can you move the water tank? Can you pick it up and move it over to the sink and fill it up?
Yeah, you can take it out, but you don't need to.
Hey, all, I want to welcome back Inkbird Products as a sponsor of the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Inkbird makes many great different temperature controllers, thermometers, all kinds of time and temp controllers. But one of the best things that they make is their new Sous Vide circulator that includes Wi-Fi, 1,000 watts of power, and super quiet at a really affordable price. It's one of my top picks for a budget sous vide circulator for people who are just getting started. Make sure you check it out in the link below. Check out Inkbird. Welcome back, Inkbird Products, to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.
And think about, when you have a big combi oven or a small one like Anova, as soon as you open that door, you've changed everything, and then it has to recover. If you take the lid off your sous vide bath and hold it up there for a while, you're not going to notice virtually any temperature loss, because that circulator is just going to keep heating the water to make up for it. The thermal mass of all that water keeps the recovery there. It's like using cast iron as opposed to a thin, cheap $2 skillet from the dollar store.
I've had people ask me, actually within the last couple of days, which one would you rather have? The sous vide or the sous vide or the Combi Steam Oven, and they both have their benefits and pros and cons, and I like them both. Question. But if I only had to have one, and somebody said, "What if you could only have one?" I said, "Well, I'd pick the circulator every time because it's a lot more versatile. I can do bigger, larger things, longer things." And the size doesn't really matter because I can move it to a different container, and I can do a lot more with that than the oven. I can do baking and all this other stuff, but I'm still limited on size. I can bake in a regular oven. You don't have to have the Anova oven to bake bread. I can do it in a regular oven. It's just if I want to get the steam in there, I got to put a pan of water in it. So technically, if it's I have to pick one, I'm going to pick the sous vide circulator, but they both have their pros and cons. They both have their strengths and weaknesses for sure. So,
back to the original podcast, when you opened it up, you said there's this frustration or arguments within the groups, right, about combi ovens being sous vide. I think the biggest problem that I've seen in all the groups, and I'm an admin mod in about 6 groups, is that the way the information is being presented, it's disingenuous. You have certain people that will cook in sous vide mode in their Anova oven, but way they post the information is, I cooked sous vide at 145 at 8 hours at 100% humidity, and then the plethora of questions that come afterwards is what pisses people off. If they would say, "Hey, I used the sous vide mode in my Anova oven and did this," it might be received a little better. People seeing that as disingenuous.
One of the things I agree with in the Facebook groups is if you are strictly saying this is a sous vide group and that's all we want to talk about, I have no problem with that. And my particular group, I mix cooking methods anyway. So I have no problem with people posting in there, but I would like, if somebody does post, it's a sous vide or a combi oven, at least state that so people do go. But
that'd be nice.
Technically, the whole reason you're saying that is because they are similar times and temperatures. So whether you do it in a combi oven or in a sous vide, it's going to get similar type results. So it really shouldn't make too much of a difference. But technically, if you're posting pictures and people are going, "That doesn't look like a sous vide bath. What is it?" You should say it is a combi oven. I kind of agree.
Now,
but
I'm a moderator in your group. Darren.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it when people, they differentiate between, yes, this is a Nova Sous Vide oven. These are my times and temperatures. I like that.
Yeah.
I want the information.
Now, like I said, go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry. Another thing that I don't think we mentioned is one of the things I see a lot of people really like is the fact that they don't have to use plastic bags, and they don't have, it saved them time to just throw some things into the Anova oven and have generally similar results in generally the same amount of time. And they don't worry about bags leaking into the water bath and that sort of thing. I can see that being an advantage. I think the ability to take in to build a quality device like that under $1,000 is pretty darn impressive.
Oh yes,
yeah, and I think that's they're the ones that came out with it first. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for some of these other companies. They're going to go, hey, well, let's see how this turns out for them, what problems that they have, so that we can not have those problems when we release ours. So I think they did the right thing by getting Scott involved. They brought somebody in from outside the company and they used one of their engineers from Electrolux that, Electrolux builds commercial steam ovens and combi ovens. So, they brought Scott in, who's got the modernist, cuisine background, and he built his own sous vide circulator company. So he wasn't some schlub who just posts stuff on, Facebook.
Watched his interview. Scott did a great job explaining what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did a lot of research, and he's, like I said, he got a lot of Nathan Mervold's, information in there, and I'm sure he called him a few times and asked for his opinion, and some of those guys that know the whole ins and outs of these types of things, and the guy that from Electrolux that is the main engineer behind it, has built the commercial type unit. So I think they did a great job with it. It's going to have issues, of course, and they're going to move on from that. And other companies are going to take this information and do it, just like the Breville smart oven. I mean,
I say Breville.
Toaster convection ovens have been around for a long time, right? They didn't invent it, but they just made it better. They incorporated the Wi-Fi controls and different, monitors and functions and things that it can do that, they've kind of upped the game on it. So I think technology is going to keep going forward. These things keep changing in our kitchens, and it's like a snowball effect. And that's why every time I get somebody on that works for a company on my podcast, that's one of the things I like to talk about first is, look back 10 years ago. Would you think, even if it's a grill manufacturer or somebody, would you think we'd have these things 10 years ago, and look how it's changed? Who would have thought, I grew up, all you had was a charcoal grill and lighter fluid, and we burned everything on the grill, and even on the smokers and the stuff that's coming out just for the patio, some of the stuff, it just blows my mind anymore. So all forms of cooking right now it just blows my mind. The temperature controllers, everything's
crazy.
The Internet of Things, everything's connected to the Wi-Fi and control. Literally, I did that video on those prime ribs. I was able to monitor, change the temperature from church. I'm sitting there, making sure, that my internal temperature didn't go above certain time, it's like I cut the temperature of the grill back down or even shut it off if I wanted to. And I'm, 20 miles away. So that kind of stuff, it changes everything, you can do a lot more now. I mean, it's just crazy. So
when I took the HACCP course down at Korea, there was a guy named Aaron there who was the chef for one of Jose Andres restaurants around DC. I forget which one. And I was talking to him, we had a break, and I was talking about the rationales, and they had just installed the newest ones. And he got on his phone. He said, yeah, I can check what's going on in my restaurant right now. And he brought up the thing and showed me the rationale ovens on his phone. Like, here's what they're doing. These are the program modes. These are the temperatures, all the information he needed to know about that he would get from the display on the oven in person. He could do it wherever he is. It's amazing. I want one.
Yeah, about 15,000, 30,000.
About 30, 35.
Wow.
But I can do that on my Anova oven too, though. See, I can monitor it wherever I go. And it's sous vide. I don't care what
from church. From church. So if your Anova turns into Dante's Inferno, you can know from church. So when I get my second version of the oven, I will probably put one in a bag. I'll throw a probe in there, and I'll contrast that with my sous vide.
Well, here's a blog post from some,
send all that stuff to me.
Some person from 2019, November 1st, 2019. So this was before the Anova oven was released, correct?
Okay.
How to sous vide steak in a steam oven. So Anova didn't come out with the sous vide mode. I know. So just showing you that that's just a misnomer. But it's just been talked about and experimented with. And the only reason I pulled this up is because I just found this article and
send all that stuff to me, Kevin.
And it just kind of tells what sous vide cooking is and the point of sous vide and blah blah blah, and then how to do it because this is when steam ovens, like the cheaper just steam ovens, like one of the ones I'm using, came out, and people were like, "Can it sous vide and all that?" So I mean,
like when I used it in the bagel shop with the injecting steam into the oven, it's the same thing.
So yeah. I mean, so it's not like I said, it's not like Anova came out with that term and they did it on purpose and they're using it just for marketing. It's been in the industry and that's been used this way for that reason, that people can understand that you're using those similar type times and temperatures, and they don't.
But outside the bag, people have to understand you're not pasteurizing. You're using outside moisture. You're not using the proteins and moisture to actually
wait a minute. You can pasteurize outside of a bag. It's not the bag that pasteurizes.
Well, right. There's no long term. There's no long term storage. Excuse me?
No long term storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can still pasteurize. You're not keeping it pasteurized.
As soon as you open the door, it's unpasteurized.
Yeah,
exactly.
Boom, unpasteurized.
Right.
Yeah. So, but you're not using the moisture of the protein to actually process the food, using an outside source, using the moisture.
Under 100%. I 100% agree with you.
100% it would. At 100% steam, you would be using the moisture in the protein.
Because it's not evaporating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not evaporating.
It's not evaporating. You're right. You're right.
But it's not sitting in its own juices, is what you're trying to say.
Right.
So when's your blog post going to be condemning sous vide mode in combi ovens coming out, Lloyd?
Well, I don't want to write a post about that until I actually own an oven. Okay, because that'd be disingenuous of me. I will write a post down the road when I get my machine. I'll get a humidity. I'll buy all the toys. A proper way to dial in the temperature, proper sensors, a wet bulb temperature. I'll buy it all.
So what do you think?
Just so I can argue.
What do you think's coming in the future? We've seen, like I said, all this technology coming with these. Anova's the first one with this home-based combi oven. You know what Breville's got out there. Do you think Breville's going to come out with something similar? Do you think other companies are going to join suit or come out with something totally different on their own? Maybe take a CVAP and
Breville and Polyscience will have their own.
I don't know if Polyscience.
I can't see why they wouldn't.
I don't know why Polyscience would, because they don't really make things for home cooks. I mean, you can buy it, but it's not generally marketed to home cooks.
No, you're right. It's right. It's $1,000.
Yeah,
and that's my first one I bought. So you're right. You're right.
I mean, it's like vacuum.
I'm a home cook. I'm a home cook. Yeah, it's like $399. You're right. You're right.
$250 circular.
No, I think
it's like $249.
The ones that they just came out with are actually, the pricing is coming down, but they're still not marketed towards home cooks. I mean, home cooks can buy them, just like VacMaster. Their stuff's not really even marketed towards home cooks. Even their vacuum sealers, they just did when they came out with the new 200 and some of the ones they came out with in the past, but they had issues with them and they got rid of them. But, they still concentrate more on the restaurants or commercial type use stuff. But well, all right, guys, I think we're about done. What else you want to talk about? This is our last one for the year.
Well, you said that what are they going to come out with, and I see pellet grills, and you got several, Kevin. It's one thing I don't have. Excuse me, Darren. I see them heavy water pans in there, steam injection, something like that, because my Weber Smoky Mountain, for example, has a water pan. Most charcoal or grills have pans in there with water. I see the pellet grills, right, having a water tank on the side with injected steam.
You think so, huh?
I do.
I don't think it's going to be anytime soon with that, because I don't know. It just seems that there's some things coming out where, and this hasn't happened up until this new one's coming out. But even Meathead we were talking about this last year. Even there's all these pellet grills and even the charcoal grill with Masterbuilt has now, where it's Wi-Fi controlled, and you can it's got the thermostatic control where you really don't have that. The gas grills have never had anything like that. And actually, there's a company called Auto Wild. It's the Auto Wild.
Auto Wild.
Yeah. And they actually came out with, and they're marketing now, and you can buy one. It's a thermostatic controlled gas grill. Actually use your Wi-Fi and get it dialed in to within a couple degrees of temperature and all that. And it's actually a modular type system where you can add different pieces to it. And it's pretty cool setup, but nobody's even Weber hasn't come out with a gas grill, or Napoleon, that you can actually have Wi-Fi and thermostatic control and PID control to it. So
I'm going on the record for 2020. Pellet grills will have a steam injector. And they're going to call it humidity control. They're not going to call it sous vide like.
Okay, we're going to put Lloyd down for pellet grills, sous vide pellet grills.
No sous vide, humidity control.
They're going to call it the Cappuccio effect.
Yeah,
I think that'd be great.
Kevin, what do you think's coming up?
I think it's just I'm surprised we haven't seen more stuff with induction cooking. Like, that kind of died off. That hit its peak for a while. I think induction's great, but not seeing much of it anymore, which I think is interesting, because that's a technology that's pretty accurate and could probably be put into different applications for different sort of cooking devices. It doesn't necessarily just have to be something you put a pan on. It's a way to create heat and do it pretty accurately. I think we're going to probably see more of this. I'm not sure. I can't. If I had known an Instant Pot was going to come out, I would have talked to an engineer and talked about it, and come up with another design or another name and done the same thing.
Question for you, Kevin, and you too, Darren. So in your Anova oven, are there the heating elements just coils on top? Electric coils. So I wonder, could you combine that with induction to generate heat so cleanup is easier?
Well, the way induction works, you got to have something touching it. So metal has to touch.
I wonder if they could do something with induction that it doesn't require contact, but you can actually have it inside an oven. What do you think, Kevin?
It's magnetics. Magnetics.
If you put a piece of magnetic steel on an induction burner, it's going to create heat, and it's going to heat up, and that'll be your heating element.
Yeah,
they're already so. Like I have, there people get into induction and then they realize that they have a $2,000 copper pan set that won't work. So you have to buy magnetic steel plates to put on top of the induction cooktop burner, and then you put your pot on top of that. So it heats the metal disc that then heats the pan. So then you don't have to throw your cookware away. You can use a cookware that isn't induction capable in that manner.
So that can work in an oven.
You can heat theoretically.
Yeah.
I mean, you're creating heat, and you're doing it quickly and pretty efficiently. It's a lot more efficient than so if you're using induction, you can heat metal in an oven, get that metal hot, which is the same as getting the metal in the metal cold, and it would work out pretty well, I think.
So let's make our own combi oven using induction.
There you go. Well, all right, guys. I think we're about done here. We've been going an hour and a half, so I want to thank you guys for being on. Hope you both have a great holiday season, New Year. No, Lloyd, you just went through your holidays from Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year.
I'm sure we'll be talking daily, but these guys won't hear us anymore. So, Next year, I'm going to probably do some more of these. We're going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to try to get some more specialized guests on the podcast as well. I'm going to have a little bit more
Not
time
special?
to do that. So.
Kevin, he just called us non-special.
I said specialized. All right, guys. Thanks for joining the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'll see you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Say bye, Kevin.
Bye. Bye, Kevin.
Well, guys, thanks for following the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Hope you enjoyed that. I guess we'll see you again sometime next year. I want to thank you guys for following us. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you follow the Fire and Water Cooking YouTube channel. Follow the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. And check out the new Fire and Water Cooking book available on Amazon in hard copy, soft copy, and ebook. I'll see you again on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast.